Hello everyone, my name is Fabian. I am conducting this interview with Niraj Goel, who is currently working at BlackRock as a managing director. Thank you so much for being with me today. And before starting the interview, I would like you to share a little bit of who you are, what you do, and a little bit of your day-to-day situation in the office and in your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, first of all, Fabian, for taking time to talk to me. Very happy to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Neeraj Goyal. I work in BlackRock as a global head of Alpha Gen Technology or Aladdin within Aladdin Engineering. And my job basically revolves around working with our investment partners to generate alpha, which is an additional return on top of the beta or index returns for our BlackRock clients. When we talk about BlackRock client, the BlackRock clients and BlackRock purpose is really to help people retire gracefully, to have that financial freedom that they would require. So we invest money for long-term basis, and part of my job is to work with investment partners to both build technology as well as implement its changes that allows them to give more returns to those retiring individuals in the future. My day-to-day is very much involved working across the globe with my team. I have a team in India, in Singapore, in Budapest, in London, in New York, in San Francisco, in Mexico. So I worked with my leadership team all around it to really manage the long-term strategy and ensure that team is doing well. Managing and building talent is my passion. I really love working with the individuals, so they are learning, they have a path forward for their career development in the future, and that's what I do. In addition to that role, I also look at the Aladdin Engineering in San Francisco, um, which is to work across the teams to make sure we have a strategy to grow this location, to bring best talent and help people connect. So I do that, and I also manage the analyst and intern program for Aladdin Engineering. So I'll stop
Thank you
there.
so
If you
much.
have any questions?
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And before jumping into my question, I would like to know a little bit of how do you make sure to correct manage people from all those different cultures? Because as you mentioned, you have teams here in the US, you have teams in India and other parts of the world. How do you make sure that you align for, let's say, the cultural nuances of the country so that you can really resonate with your employees on those areas? How do you manage all that stuff?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I think in addition to culture, managing anyone really comes from how much you know about them, how much you talk to them, understand what matters to them, and then providing that flexibility. So, in most places, when I have regional tape, I have usually a lead who is looking locally and making sure taking people locally, but talking to people quite a bit, spending time with them, and it is necessary to do that more with the remote team people. So if I spend 1 hour with somebody locally, I spend 4 hours for people who are remote. That
Mm,
way you learn more about them, you get to know about them. Whenever I have catch up, I always talk about personal life before
mm,
jumping to professional. I love to know about how they're doing, how their family doing, what they have done on the weekend, and
mm,
that kind of gives you an idea of what is important to them, and then giving them freedom to do what they want to do. Hearing from local leaders what is important for them helps quite a bit. For example, I learned very early working with Budapest team that they like to go home on time early to have dinner with family. That is something they love to do and they want to continue to do. So managing the team schedule, managing the meeting schedule accordingly is one of the big things. So I think talking to them, learning about them is really the only way you can manage people right, or do the justice with them.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And that really shows that managing people is not just giving things to do, it's more about getting to know the person so that you can really understand their passions, their, as you mentioned, what is important for them, because at the end, everyone has things that are more important than others. And understanding those is definitely a key aspect for managing teams correctly. That's
Yeah.
definitely true. So moving into the questions, I would like to touch a little bit more about your role in alpha generation specifically, and how do you do your responsibilities as global head of alpha generation technology and investor data align with BlackRock strategy objectives?
Yeah, I think I've touched on before BlackRock Alpha, we call it the Alpha is the heart of BlackRock. And what that means, as we think about bringing the returns for our clients, we look at Alpha as a great opportunity to drive those returns, to bring more and more returns. So, as part of BlackRock strategy, Alpha is considered in the center of the whole strategy, and that's how we call it the heart of BlackRock. Um, since we invest a lot of time doing systematic, which means bringing a lot of data, coming up with ideas to generate more returns and implementing it and doing it faster, it really, really, really aligned very well with BlackRock strategy to help our clients. At the end of the day, if we are able to uh, do justice for our client by giving them the maximum benefit for their money, that is the strategy we have. We always want to work for our client, not for ourselves. And my team focus is very much into how do we deliver it faster and accurately? How do we make sure that whatever we can, whatever the new idea is, whatever the new models are, whatever the new product is, we implement it quickly and work towards it. And that's what we have been working on. Like with people, understanding your investment team's members, investment leadership, understanding what matters to them and how they are thinking of helping our client really makes a difference. That's part of my job to know them, spend time with them, and coming up with strategy to help them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the information. That really shows and help us understand BlackRock from a perspective that I would say at least I didn't have it. I just thought of BlackRock, or BlackRock just is a big bank that generates money, and that's it. So that really clarifies my view, and I think the view of a lot of the people that are going to be looking into this interview. So moving into another question, and I think this is going to be the last question before moving on to the fintech core of the interview, is how did your academic experiences shape your approach to technology and finance?
I think I believe it was around college when I got into computer. I took my computer class, and right away I felt like I'm in a territory where I enjoy learning about it, enjoy doing about it, and do I felt like a freedom, sort of freedom, by doing things that I can do with computer by writing code. It's very similar to, if you're a carpenter, you know how to make things from wood. And if you have any need, you'll just get on it and get it done. And that's how I felt learning computer, that there isn't that you can't do and you can jump on it. So that's how my interest in technology started, and I love working on anything. I've never, and one thing that I would highlight quite high is you should never be a slave to a particular technology or a language. I hear all the time people talk about, oh, I only like Python, I only like Java. And I say, computer engineering, software engineering is all about logic and how you use the syntax to get the outcome you want. Language is just a mechanism to get there, and that's how it should be treated. And that's have been my motto all life is I always pick language based on where it is applicable and not because I like it. Um, to be honest, fintech was not something that finance was not something that was part of my my profile. I Somebody recommended me to come to, it was BGI, Barclays Global Investor before. And I came in and I loved learning about finance. I loved learning about everything we do and how fascinating it is. And I spent a lot of time with my investment partners and friends to learn about finance minute detail. Why we are doing this? How does it help our client? How does it help to make them more retirement money? So as I got into more and more, I really, really enjoy finance. And then if you use that knowledge to solve their problem with technology, that becomes fintech, and that's what I work on.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the information. That really shows the passion that you have and your adaptability, of course, as you mentioned. You don't have to start with just one thing because you like it. In your case, it's the programming languages. But I think that applies to almost all aspect of our lives. You don't really have to start with something just because you find it more comfortable, or just because you say that it's good for you. If you don't explore other areas or other processes, you might never know if you find something better or even more easier to achieve something. That's really helpful to share.
And if you are starting your career, I think a good manager or leader would love to bring in people who are flexible and
Mhm.
eager to learn than people who know everything and say, this is what I'm gonna work on and that's it. There's a
Yeah.
differentiation between those two kind of people. And I would always go with the first one who likes to learn, do something even though they don't know anything, over a person who knows every things and don't want to change.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. So now moving into more of the fintech part of the interview, I would like to know how does fintech influence the daily life of individuals? We can focus in the US and maybe abroad if you want to touch a little bit on that too.
Yeah, I would say there isn't anything that's not impacted by fintech, which can include things like how you get paid, how do you, make money. Everything is touched. For example, if you go work somewhere, they're gonna pay you. To pay you, they need to understand how much to pay you, what rate to use, and they would be using some payroll software to do that. That's fintech. You take that money and you put it in a bank right away. That's another fintech area where there's a lot of investment to make sure not only that your money is safe, but your money is invested so you can make interest out of it. That's a huge fintech. Um, if you use credit card, again, the fintech, imagine the performance of those billions of transaction every day that goes and do transaction on your credit cards and still accurate at the end of the day. That's all fintech. So every aspect of life for everyone is fintech. Now, as we move to the other countries, especially the developing countries or countries that are not developed yet, more and more fintech is coming in. I'll give you example of India. 15 years ago, a normal person would probably have bank account or not, never use credit card, everything is in cash. At this point, every single transaction in India happens by scanning QR code from your phone. People do not use cash. It's in fact, lot of places would not even take cash. And that's a huge transformation for a country with uh, over 1.5 billion people living in.
Mhm.
So that's how the impact of fintech is.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And adding into that, if we compare to the US, there is a less adoption of fintech technologies or processes. As you mentioned, India, everything, almost everything is done through fintech. In your opinion, why is that? Why the US is going so behind other countries, especially the emerging nations, in the adoption of fintech? Is something just because of the government or because the people don't trust on the technologies?
This is a very, very interesting question coming out of it because I think about it a lot. I travel a lot and I was in Europe and I never had to carry my credit card anywhere, not even McDonald's. Like phone, everyone takes it, nobody. The other thing in Europe, which is amazing, is if you do use credit card, they take PIN, which means the credit card fraud is almost negligible in outside US. In US, we don't. We kind of support fraud by not having people use PIN, which means when you touch your credit card, you have to enter a personal PIN, which nobody would know. But here we don't do that. My take, and I'm not expert in this, my take is it has to do with more commercialization. Even fraud generates so big a business. If you think about all these credit alert companies and credit card companies and everything, they make so much money by just monitoring your credit report, monitoring if there's any fraud and things like that. If US move at the same speed and allow, there would be less and less opportunity for commercialization, less opportunity for people to make money. Not saying that is the right thing to do. I don't think that's the right thing. That's just how the thought process works.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure if all those loopholes are closed and we bring the technology faster in US, I think commercially it still would be amazing place and there's going to be a lot of opportunity. But
Mhm.
since the lobbyists have that business running,
Mhm.
they pitch very hard to let anything come in. Like if you go to India, you can have in your phone
Mhm.
4, 5, 6 eSIMs, and you can pick and choose which one you want to use to call, which one you want to accept the call. Here, we lock it down,
Mhm.
don't allow it. And that is a big business for the phone company because they get that subscription money all the time, irrespectively, and they won't. So what you touched on is right. It is because of the government, because government supports those kind of things, those kind of policies.
Mhm.
It allows companies. So you can say companies have more power than people, even though the US Constitution is we the people.
Mhm.
That's not really true, and that's where it comes from. I do believe if if there's one thing we can change, well, two things we can change. One is every senator, every house member have a limit of how many terms you can have,
Mhm.
and nobody should be allowed to join to join. If you have been a part of the Senate or House, you should not be allowed to take a job with the other companies as somebody
Mhm.
who pitch it, and there should not be any money they can pay to the government or senators or House for their campaign. All those things can be resolved much easier. Sorry,
Mhm.
going in politics, not that where I wanted to go, but
No problem.
it's so passion thing for me. I really think about it a lot. Why? Especially when I see the differences between other countries and US.
Yeah, well, I appreciated that opinion, and definitely shows another, I would say, a more professional view of the take. A lot of people just say, "Well, it is the way of how we do things in America." But if you really think, as you mentioned, the commercial part of the things, that is where you see where the money goes, and that at the end, money rules most of the things that we do. And if you follow the money, you're gonna find the reason behind most of the things that happen today in our society, especially.
And so when at this point, in the name of capitalism, actually it's not capitalism when you're working in a company. Capitalism is when you have business. But at this point, there's only 0.0001% of people own 99% of the money. It's
That
not
is crazy.
capitalism.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
called
really,
royalty. It's a
yeah.
royal treatment. So we are back to the king's world now. There are few people who have all the money. They do all the things. They make all decisions. That's it.
Well, hopefully there is enough people that can see that and make the change. But for now,
Young, I have
it's very complicated.
utmost confidence that the new generation that's coming up, the generation you have, is and would change it. The only thing that I see less and less is more lot and less people are going into politics. And if young people do not go in politics, that kind of change is very tough. We can't, like, how do we have a senator who is 94-year old and still senator? Like, you should be senator for 2 terms, maybe 3 terms, and then you should have responsibility to grow somebody else to take that position. But since we don't have a term limit, they actually work reverse. They do not want anyone else to come because then they lose power.
Mhm.
It is not this thing really pushes to not grow anyone else and take all
Mhm.
the power in your hand.
Definitely. Well, that's really good to know and understand that people that are on those positions as you have faith into the upcoming generations. It's good to hear because a lot of the people in those positions they don't really care about us or they don't really see any potential in a lot of the people on the generation. So it's really thankful and really, at least for me, it gives me the energy and really the understanding of I can make the changes. I just have to work for them. That's really helpful to hear. Really appreciate it too. Well, now moving more into the fintech part of the questions, I would like to know if it's possible, obviously, any example of how fintech has influenced or changed BlackRock investment models.
Everything. So
Yes.
BlackRock, if you have heard about Aladdin,
Mhm.
Aladdin is the engineering aspect of that finance arm. So Aladdin is our technology platform that allows every single person to scale themselves, to do things that other can't do. And on top of it, we take that technology and we sell it. For example, if you are a person who work with clients, we have enough technology to build in to know what that client have said before, what client's portfolio we manage, how much money we manage, and everything. So using fintech, they can have a very valuable discussion with the client, give them any information they want, and give them very relevant information very quickly. If you have a client who wants to send you more cash to invest and invest into many different, like some in passive equity, active equity, fixed income, some, other things, a simple workflow of fintech would allow them to spread that money the way clients want. We manage the risk for client every single day. We run something called green package, which shows client how much risk they are taking, how much risk they have in their portfolio, and they can then say, I want to change something. So full transparency. So um, BlackRock is managing $11.5 trillion for our clients today. And I would say fintech is one of the most ground or the most base thing that has enabled them to do it. 11.5 is a lot of money
It is.
to manage. And if we didn't have built the system with technology, the fintech system, it would have been very, very, very tough.
Mhm.
So for people less than 20,000 to manage 11.5 trillion, 11 with 12 zeros, it can only happen because of the technology scale, and that's where the fintech comes in.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that definitely shows the impact of these technologies and how can you really use them, as you mentioned, with the case of Aladdin, AI technology in BlackRock to really get the better, I would say, edge in the market and differentiate the organization between other big banks within America and obviously around the world. Another question that I would like to know, in your perspective, what kind of new technologies, processes, or strategies do you see that can have the biggest impact on fintech?
Yeah, I think we touched on a little bit before too, but at this point, AI or Gen AI is probably the biggest one. When I think about Gen I think of a way that enables a lot more creativity to come at the same level as the people who had coding skills. So earlier, only the people with coding skills can really come and code and do things,
Mhm.
which basically bound that anything that can be done is limited to those number of people. with Gen AI and English language that can translate things into code itself allows everyone to be innovative, to be able to do things. And that, in my opinion, is huge, huge, huge opportunity with the fintech. Um, I think AI Gen AI is far more the most biggest thing, and I would advise every single person who's right now in the school or college is to learn Gen AI. Learn about it, how to use it, how do you make it more powerful on a day-to-day basis, and be bold about it. Don't pull back. There's a huge, huge thing around it. I think when it comes to fintech, uh, another part that has continued to grow in this is Python. So Python is a language of researcher, we call it, and it continued to grow in a very, very massive scale and continue to be the one that more and more people are getting into. So we in BlackRock, we just hosted a
Mm.
PyCon internally, and we had thousands and thousands of people join that. We had so many presentation people talk about Python that we had to create two different tracks in parallel, so people had to choose whether they listen to this one or this one. And that is the Python journey, which has been absolutely amazing. Third is cloud. Like everything is now on cloud.
Mm.
Um, and using that cloud technology, understanding the paradigm of what costs money versus not. For example, today, if you buy a computer, there's an initial investment of whatever,
Mm.
700, 600, $800, and then you own it.
Mm.
With cloud, it changes. Cloud is more subscription-based model. So you don't have a initial investment, but you're paying all the time for usage of it. So understanding that aspect and optimizing it to manage the expense and still be able to be profitable is one of the big things that everyone should learn. So I think those kind of things in at the more basic level is really, really interesting from where I see it. I think
Mm.
you got to have your fundamentals very clear. That is basic. From technology perspective, learn about Gen AI, get into Python if possible, and then, figure out how you use cloud all the time and know what is costing you at any point in time and how you optimize it, gonna go a long way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And adding a little bit just onto the Gen AI aspect of the technologies that are coming in the future. A lot of people is worried that AI is going to replace them. And I don't believe that much. Because at the end, this is a new technology, and obviously you have to approach it in the way of you have to learn how to use it because that's gonna be the thing of the future. Not even in the future, we see it right now. But in your opinion, the finance sector, or specifically the fintech sector, will be more susceptible to those changes or replacement of people by just some version of ChatGPT that is capable of doing, for example, what you do or what other people in BlackRock do.
Yeah, I do think that you can literally divide into two pieces. The one piece is this very operational thing where you go enter things, where you're doing things manually all the time, which is not using your brain power. You're not thinking about it, you're just doing it.
Mhm.
I do think, and I would love for Gen AI to replace it. I don't think that kind of work humans should be doing because the people with brain should not spend time doing that doesn't use brain.
Mhm.
Other aspect of the second part is the innovation. You would have a lot more time to
Mhm.
innovate because you're not doing that mundane stuff. So you would be thinking, it's like, when I was growing up, there was not even forget about cell phone. We didn't even had phone. So for me to learn how to use a cell phone and an iPhone, it took a long time. And then I can start thinking from there on.
Mhm.
Nowadays, kids learn about iPhone so much so that a 2-year-old kid would know more about iPhone than you, which means level of learning is so high in that early period that you have much more breadth to learn more and more. That's
Mhm.
how I think about Gen AI. Yes, it would replace some of the mundane things that you do operationally, but it would create such a huge opportunity for you to innovate more that you're gonna be doing things more and more that I can't imagine today.
Mhm.
And we can't imagine today because right now our time goes into doing things which nobody else can do. I'll give you an example. My boss, he's no more with us. The first boss I joined in US, he was a student in late 70s. And when the first languages start to come, he asked that question from his professors, like, oh, now there's C++ and languages are coming, that means they would not need software engineers. I'm talking about like late 70s. That's the thought that time. And the professor told them, no, you're just going to be doing on top of that. It would never end. It's exactly the same thing. No technology has come that has stopped and say your work which require brain power is not needed. Even for AI today, one of the biggest times are going to be how do you make sure that data is not only accurate, but is curated and sent in the same way? It is gonna be human brain who's figuring that out. Yes, using Gen AI to get a lot of really useful stuff, but that's where it falls down to. So I do think Gen AI should replace a lot of operational things.
Mhm.
I also think Gen AI and AI would create way more opportunity and gonna take us to the next level. You know what I think about Fabian? I do think that there's need to be more investment in other area. For example, it still takes me a long time to go to India.
Mhm.
That hasn't changed in 30 years. I still fall sick.
Mhm.
I still need to take 5 days to recover. That hasn't
Mhm.
changed. There are so many things that technology should have done better. And I'm really hoping Gen AI in the hand of people who may not be technically savvy, but really care about human being, be able to bring a change.
Mhm.
That I'm looking for.
Mm. That's really that's really interesting. And actually, that was kind of my next question that I would like to ask you. We know that this technology is still pretty new in a lot of places, and not a lot of people have access to it. And even for different reasons, because they don't have the resources, or because some people just stop them to access to them. How can we make sure that the benefits of AI, FinTech are accessible to all the segments of society, or to the most segments of society?
It comes down to same thing, commercialization. I do trust that outside US is gonna happen much faster, and it's gonna happen because outside US the control in the hand of companies and government is a lot less.
Mm.
And it would go in front of people, it would go in front of everyone. I think it all gonna come down to how much control the commercial wants to take. We already talking about, oh, we are spending money, what is the ROI, return of investment? And when you are only thinking about return of investment, it's very hard to do anything good. And that's my biggest worry. The only way it can happen when we continue to have very successful Google, very successful OpenAI, very successful companies who have money and able to create that kind of openness. If we don't have companies like Google, if we don't have them, it's gonna be very, very tough
Mm.
because the commercial companies only want to make money. They are not interested in making it available to other people. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer of how
Mm.
or whether it's going to be done. I just know that it can be done if companies don't control everything and not make
Mm.
it everything about money.
Mm. Okay, that's a really good perspective. Hopefully, people within those companies and also people in position of relevance can have a chance on shit. I think that, as you
Yeah,
mentioned, that even if just profits is an issue, we don't really think about the development of the human species. So as long as we don't have none of that, we are gonna be stuck in the situation that we are right now. So hopefully there is a change in the future, in the near future, hopefully, so we can advance for better.
exactly. And I think Fabian, I really so let me pick another analogy for you. I love working with charity. I love doing things. I love to support. I spend a lot of time, with the SF Marine Food Bank to do everything, give them tons of donation and everything. But many of time, I think about why do we even need it?
Hmm.
Why can't we create system that doesn't keep anyone poor so they have to ask for food? The fundamental right of everyone should include food for life, place to stay for life, a place to study for life. Those should be fundamental things for everyone. That should not be given, that should be available for everyone, no matter what.
Hmm.
So I see a lot of companies, including BlackRock, many companies do big charities and stuff. And it does feel good. It is awesome.
Hmm.
But nobody is spending time to fundamentally change so it's not needed.
Hmm.
Why is that? Why can't we pay people more than the minimum wage? Minimum wage is too tiny. You cannot survive in minimum wage.
Hmm.
Why do waiters have to wait for the tip to make their income
Hmm.
while the owner gonna go home and live in a multi-million dollar mansion? That I'm hoping would change, fundamentally change. And more people who would have access to Gen AI, more and more people who can bring those kind of change, hopefully would happen. But that's what needs to change. It cannot be, let's give more money to charity. It has to be, how do we invest more into the fundamental economy in a way that people don't have to ask? Only a
Hmm.
lazy person who doesn't like to work should be in the situation they can't feed their family. But people who work one, two, four jobs,
Hmm.
it should never be such situation.
That's a really difficult, at least in my situation, hopefully I still have support and I haven't seen myself going through that, but that is definitely true, especially seeing in San Francisco. There is a lot of, it's a difficult life for the people, especially in Bay Area and the whole country, the whole nation, the whole world. So really changing and asking those questions, as you mentioned, really start with the things that we do and analyzing. And I would say that taking a philosophical approach into our lives, something that it seems to be lost or ignored currently, maybe can bring us those answers and hopefully change the way we do things and the way the society works at the end. Yeah. Moving into another question on the fintech, we kind of went to more different approach, but I have two more questions in the fintech section that I would like to know your opinion about. Uh, right now, we see every other day about cyber attacks or cyber threats. How does BlackRock protect the consumers, gather the information, the money, and the same infrastructure of the company against such threats that we currently face?
Yeah. So InfoSec, the information security, is the foremost thing that we believe in. We have a huge department of InfoSec who have policies, guidelines, and checks and balances at all points. Every person must adhere to it. There's no exception. When we build new software, it goes through the InfoSec checks. It goes through all the checks to make sure that you don't have vulnerability created in that system. So InfoSec does multiple things. One, it stays latest on the best and best of whatever happening is out there. So they continue to build things that would find, detect, and help to mitigate those risks. It also creates guidelines and governance so that everyone has to follow it, and they make sure that you are following it. That really is one of the most fundamental things we do. Every single person in this company would know the name InfoSec because everyone has to deal with it and everyone must adhere to it. The other thing we do, we have this capture the flag competition in FinTech every year. Capture the flag basically is, you can call it a puzzle or series of puzzles, a whole day thing. It
Mhm.
works for 24 hours. You compete in it by solving different problems. And it is set up by InfoSec team. It has some of the most weirdest problems that you can get into. And that does two things. One, it allows a lot of people, engineers or fintech people, to solve those problems
Mhm.
innovatively. Second, it really brings those things in front of everyone. So there's a lot more transparency. So I think things like those are they're gamification, but they're also helpful and educational. That helps. But the main thing is if you care about something, you're gonna make a much bigger impact. And we do care about info security a lot. And
Mhm.
that's the only way we can save our clients, save ourselves from all these attacks because they are happening left and right. When if I have to send an email outside BlackRock,
Mhm.
it goes through two checks
Mhm.
from my side. It would stop it and say, hey, you didn't say that you're sending it outside, so you need to check you want to send it outside. Then it would again check and say, hey, you've never sent an email outside. Do you want to really send it? And are you confirming that you've read it?
Mhm.
That's just for email, which is
Mhm.
everywhere else. We don't allow, you can't open your own Gmail or your Yahoo account or tons of those journal websites that are available everywhere. You cannot open them in BlackRock. And that's for
Mhm.
InfoSec reason. We have our own demilitarized zone, DMZ we call it, which is a space between external firewall and internal firewall. There's a space in between
Mhm.
that is disconnect. So there's not one firewall. There are two.
Mhm.
One firewall to external, one firewall to internal, and everything has to have a huge permission to go back and forth between them. So those kind of things are something we work.
Oh, that really shows how serious BlackRock takes uh, all the information and as I mentioned, the threats of attacks. And now that you mentioned, now I know how the contact process between me and you went about sending the information because I sent the first email through your BlackRock email, and now I know of the process of getting in contact with someone within the company. That's really
Exactly.
good to know. The last question that I would like to ask you related to fintech would be, we cannot touch a little bit of how Gen AI can actually help us to do the more critical or the things that are going to enhance the living conditions within our societies. But I would like to know how fintech advancements can promote more equitable access to, let's say, financial services without increasing the gap of the people who has access to them and those who don't have access to it.
Yeah. No, I think that is a very fundamental thing. If you look at technology and even information, today if you need an answer, you have to go to Google. And when you go to Google and say something, it gives you a search results, tons of search results. What has changed? What Gen AI has changed, which I experience every day. Now, when I go to OpenAI and ask that question, I get an answer as if I'm talking to somebody.
Mm,
If I say, "Hey, I want to build my own keyboard and I want to buy all the component and tell me where should I get it from and what all I need to do this." I'm talking to somebody, right? I can
Yeah.
put all that information in Gen AI and it gives me exactly what I'm looking for. Versus if I Googled it, it would give me a bunch of website. Then
Hmm.
I have to go and figure that out, do more research and stuff. So what Gen AI is changing for people is how they interact with it and how quickly it gives you the answer you're looking for. So let's suppose you are talking to two different people. One person you ask a question, you get an answer. Other person you ask a question, and that person asks another 30 questions, and then another 60 questions. Who would you want to go to?
Hmm.
First one, right?
Yeah.
I think that access to information had been there for a long time. Gen AI is going to make it easier for everyone to get access to information, not only information, but in a way they can understand and use it.
Hmm.
That's the biggest difference you're gonna see in the future with Gen AI that we already seeing to some extent, and we're gonna see more and more. So when if I go to my mom who doesn't know technology, I
Hmm.
can't tell her to do something. But if I give her OpenAI, ChatGPT, and say, just tell ChatGPT what you want, she can
Hmm.
just say it and she
Hmm.
get an answer. So
Definitely.
then the access to information gets so much easier and so much relevant. That's gonna be an amazing. That's where I see it. It's gonna be equitable. That means everyone would be able to do it. Today, only the people who wanted to go through two, three, four, five steps could use it
Hmm.
earlier.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good answer. And hopefully the people who have access to those tools use it for the best. As we know, that might not be the case. We have seen some examples so far, but we are not here to discuss that stuff at the end. Once again, thank you, Niraj, for giving me the opportunity to better understand how a large institution such as BlackRock uses FinTech to improve the life of its clients. Also, I want to thank you for having the confidence to share with me your thoughts and ideas about the various topics we touch upon during our conversation that I believe that will help not only me, but any individual watching this video to better understand why our society works the way it works.